Yo voy a decir de quién es el Bronx y ustedes van a decir de nosotros. ¿De quién es el Bronx?
¡De nosotros!
¿De quién es el Bronx?
¡De nosotros!
¿De quién es el Bronx?
¡De nosotros!
O sea, de todos. Bienvenidos sean todos ustedes a esta reunión. Queremos darles la cordial bienvenida a las personas que nos visitan por primera vez. Por lo menos levanten la mano para verlos. ¿Quiénes están aquí por primera vez? Bienvenidos. También queremos darle la bienvenida a las personas que jueves primero de cada mes se dan cita aquí fielmente y siempre están aquí. Bienvenidos también. Y también queremos darle la bienvenida a nuestro concejal Fernando Cabrera.
Who's Bronx? Who's Bronx? So how everyone feeling tonight? Okay. Well, just want to welcome everybody. Thanks for everybody coming out tonight. It's extremely important that we unify and stick together, because the common denominator is that it's our Bronx. Okay. So once again, like I said, for those of you that don't know me, my name is Justice. I'm an organizer with Local 79. Hello. Hi. Can you hear me? Okay. All right. Take it up a notch. All right, first, let me just give a few roll calls to the people that's in the house. Shout out to the carpenters that's here. Carpenters here? Are the carpenters here? All right. Also want to give a shout out to the insulators. Are the insulators here? Insulators here, okay. Nice shout out to Local 79. Local 79 here? Okay, what about Local 78? Okay. Also, we have Casa here. What about Casa? Casa's here, right? Casa. All right, we also have the Northwest Bronx Community Clergy Coalition. Let me hear some more noise. You guys can hear me? We also have Faith in New York is here as well. Okay, yes. Well, thank you all for coming. Auto workers, do we have our auto workers here? Well, for those that are not in the physical form, you definitely here in the spiritual form. So we here in solidarity with all other people that are not physically here. So we also have the painters here. Sorry for the delay. Okay, listen, we don't believe in any we believe in unity and sticking together. So what we have going on is language justice. Language is important. So we have those that just speak Spanish or English, but we're not going to allow anything to divide us. So we have interpreters that interpret fluently for those, and we're sorry for the others that we may not be able to accommodate. But for the most important popular languages, that's what we have here. Nothing is going to divide us, no language, anything. We're going to unify for this situation and stick together. Okay, overview, what the night to expect. So, what we expect here is, for those, let me give you a brief description on what's been taking place for those that may be new to coming to what we have with this coalition that we're building, which is the rezoning. The rezoning is taking place in the Bronx. We want to make sure that we are actually inclusive to this rezoning, and various have different concerns and issues about the rezoning that's going to take place. Some people may believe that it's not a good thing, some may believe, but the most important thing is that we come together on that. So for the people that don't know about a rezoning is when the zoning laws change. So say if you have a tenant in building that's not able to go up that was only able to go up 6 stories. Once these zoning laws change, you could build skyscrapers, you could build all of those things in the Bronx. A lot of different things is expected to take place, and we just want to let you guys know to be a part of what we believe that we should have a voice in this. I also want to ask you guys to put your phones on vibrate, because it can actually affect the transmitters that's translating into English. Would greatly appreciate that if you guys can do that. We also going to have index cards. The index cards are going to be when each and every one of us can write our concerns about what's directly important to you about the rezoning, what's going to take place. Meaning, all right, listen, Then we're gonna narrow that down, put that all into one pile, and we're gonna ask the questions to the elected officials that's here.
Gracias, Justis. Como bien decía mi compañero Justis, es importante que tengan siempre en cuenta que las preguntas van a ser dirigidas al proceso de rezoning específicamente. Nosotros como expertos en nuestra comunidad sabemos cuáles son todas nuestras necesidades y cuáles son todos nuestros problemas, pero esta noche específicamente vamos a estar hablando de rezoning. Nuestra coalición tiene aproximadamente 2 años y hemos venido trabajando en nuestros principios. Nosotros tenemos 4 principios básicos y esta noche vamos a llamar a algunos de nuestros miembros de la coalición para que hablen un poquito de nuestros principios. Para comenzar voy a llamar a mi compañera Carmen Vega Rivera, que nos va a estar hablando de affordable housing.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I ask you to bear with me. I have a hoarse voice still. I'm going to talk about the issue of affordable housing, which is one of the platform principles that came out of our report. Good evening. I'm going to repeat my name. I'm Carmen Vega Rivera, a CASA leader and a member of the steering committee of the Bronx Coalition for a Community Vision. I want to welcome City Council members Vanessa Gibson and Fernando Cabrera, and also thank them for attentively listening to my concerns about affordable housing. I came to the Bronx in 1979 via the Lower East Side to work at the Bronx Museum of the Arts as a curator and then the associate director. My dream was to eventually return to the Lower East Side, but I can no longer do that since it's completely unaffordable, being that it's been gentrified. Rent prices have gone through the roof. Most new developments are market rate with very little subsidies, of which none I qualify for. Many of my friends and family members have been displaced. Whenever I do travel to the Lower East Side, I no longer recognize the place I once called home. I now call the Southwest Bronx my home for the past 36 years. I have raised my 2 children and now my grandchildren in this neighborhood. I love my community. Damn right I do. I love all that it has to offer, its richness, the diversity, the many cultures, the amazing architecture and Art Deco buildings, the history, the food, but most importantly, I love hearing all the music, the birthplace of hip-hop, breakdancing, and we know the Bronx as a condado de la salsa. And no one can take that away from us. I enjoy shopping in my neighborhood, mom and pop stores and my local businesses versus Bronx box stores that are popping everywhere. And they're surrounding us like a wagon train. I have invested in my community and waited many years to see the reinvestment to return to me and my community, but that has not happened. So who are we building for? Is it for us? No, it's not. It's for others. I am concerned about my family and community. Where will they go? Where will they live? If we don't make real affordable housing a priority, then why are we here? Most local residents are rent burdened and pay more than 30% and sometimes much more than 50% of their income towards rent. Who can live here? Can you? Raise your hand if you can. That being said, neither can I. Not my neighbors or my friends. We need to build affordable housing for them. We need to build for us. U.S., not United States, but for us. Right now, families making $60,000 can move here and find affordable housing on the market, but we can't. We don't need to use taxpayer dollars to subsidize housing for them. The city currently does not have a mechanism to subsidize the kind of affordable housing that we desperately need. In other words, a new term sheet. I am proud to be part of the coalition that created a new term sheet in partnership with labor, tenants, and developers. We need to use the new term sheet that is non-negotiable. The term sheet speaks for itself. If we don't, then the message will be clear that this rezoning is not for us. Please stand with me if you feel that affordable housing is a priority for our community. And stand up with me if you feel, as the African proverb says, Nothing about us, without us, is for us. Please stand if you demand affordable housing in this community. Here, let him hear your voices, folks. And so on that note, I just want to thank you, and let's keep the fight together and moving it forward. Thank you.
Continuando con nuestros miembros de la coalición, vamos a llamar ahora a Jaime Steven de Northwest Bronx con desplazamiento de inquilinos. Jaime. En lo que nuestro compañero Jaime viene, quiero retomar un poquito el tema de rezoning. Nosotros estamos muy claros aquí como comunidad que nosotros no estamos en contra de rezoning. Si lo van a hacer, tienen que tomar en cuenta nuestras demandas. Esa siempre ha sido nuestra conversación. Rezoning, pero con nuestros principios, con nuestras demandas. ¿Puede venir, señor Jaime? Y si no lo hacen, entonces no hay rezoning. Rezoning con nosotros, sin nosotros no hay rezoning. Que estemos todos claros en la misma página esta noche.
Muchas gracias y bienvenidos. Mi nombre es Jaime Steinberg, vivo en las 2454 de la Cabrera Avenue. Vengo acá para decirles, primeramente quiero agradecerles por escuchar lo que tengo que decir. Quiero contar mi historia de ocaso contra mi persona, que es larga, pero no voy a entrar en ella. Todo el edificio ha experimentado lo siguiente: pobre mantenimiento de edificio, reparaciones mal hechas, liqueos de techo, paredes, ventanas, mojo, mucha humedad, mal funcionamiento de elevador, ratas por todo el edificio. Me cambiaron los radiadores sin ningún motivo, destruyendo el soporte de los radiadores, lo cual creó agujeros por los cuales emanaban olores impacientes a orina de rata. Sufrí todo esto por decidir de organizar a los inquilinos en una asociación. También porque tengo 42 años viviendo en ese edificio y quieren sacarme para recibir rentas más altas. Debemos, por esa misma razón, organizarnos y ser más fuertes. Y también necesitamos leyes que enforcen y prevengan ocasos y desalojo de cualquier inquilino, pobre o rico. Gracias.
¡Sí se puede! ¡Sí se puede! ¡Sí se puede! ¡Sí se puede! ¡Sí se puede!
Our Bronx. Who's Bronx?
Our Bronx.
Who's Bronx?
Our Bronx.
Who's Bronx?
Our Bronx.
Who's Bronx?
Our Bronx.
See, listen. Only way this rezoning is going to take place, that we as a coalition, we as a community, going to allow it to take place, and we have these 4 things that's up here. All right? Affordable housing. Can I get some noise for affordable housing? Can I get some noise for affordable housing? No one should be displaced. No displacement. Come on, let me get some noise for that, please. Good jobs, local hire. All right? Very important. Not only that, these jobs are allocated to the people that live in this community, right? Most important. And then we're gonna have real community participation. So Wayne, you ready, Wayne?
Let's go, Wayne.
Let's go, Wayne. Yeah.
How you doing, ladies and gentlemen? So I'm gonna go straight into my testimony. I'm gonna read some of it off the paper, then I'll freestyle the rest, because this is our life we live in. You know what I mean? I just want to give y'all an accurate depiction of my career in this union. So, good evening, everybody. My name is Wayne Moulton. I'm a proud union member, shop steward of Local 79. I'm also vice president of 100 Black Construction Workers, a nonprofit whose mission is to improve the political, educational, social, and economic status of African Americans within the construction industry. Sorry about that, y'all. I want to start by thanking Councilmember Gibson and Cabrera for allowing me to express the concerns I have with this city's proposed plan to rezone my neighborhood along Jerome Avenue. There are too many people in my community that have long lived through this period of underinvestment in the Bronx. And I'm here today to say that we will not be displaced and we will not be silenced. I have a career today with quality health care, retirement security because of Local 79 gave me an opportunity to overcome barriers that many people face when they come home or try to get into society through re-entry. Because of barriers in housing, employment, and education, individuals too often relapse and return to the criminal activity that first placed them in prison. I was one of those vulnerable individuals, but my past did not matter to Local 79. The union recognized that people can move past their indiscretions, and they gave me a second chance at life with a career. I am now an activist, and I want my neighbors to access the same opportunities I received from Local 79 when I returned home. This is why it is disheartening that it is a massive plan that will create over 4,000 jobs in the construction industry, does not include local hiring requirements or the utilization of New York State certified apprenticeship programs. Who will build these 325 new apartments? Who will train and make sure those workers come home after a long day's work? With all these questions still unanswered, 30 worker fatalities over the last 2 years, it seems the city has not properly analyzed all social impacts of this monumental land change. Our youth and our community deserves a plan that has their best interests in mind. And if done responsibly with community input, the city can actually create a pathway to middle class for my neighborhood through the Jerome Avenue rezoning with local hire requirements and the utilization of New York State approved apprenticeship program. This is the kind of plan we want, and this is the kind of plan that we're advocating for. Now, for those that don't really understand what the local hiring thing is, we've been working with certain city agencies trying to get legislation pushed to guarantee better economic gains in our community, not just a promise. We want things in writing, so certain things in contract language, we cannot have them write down. Like we cannot have them say, you're gonna make contracts union. What we can ask them to do, what we can advocate for is prevailing wage. Prevailing wage will guarantee that even if you're not union, you'll still make close to a good union wage salary. We are not against non-unions. Most people don't understand if you see us protesting outside of a non-union job, it is not the workers we are mad at. Not at all. We are mad because we understand that the exploitation is going down, the unsafe work practices are going down. We understand that billionaires is pocketing money that belongs in this community, and we're not with that. You know what I mean? So what we're trying to tell you is a lot of our people that you see on these corners out here, they don't know that this construction even exists. Like I go on a lot of high school jobs, and the one thing I say is, does anyone know that before college you can actually go to unions? But we're trying to spread this information, and I'm gonna let that go along so we can continue to meet, and thanks for your time.
Thanks, Wayne, for his testimony. Yeah, we got a roll call again. Carpenters, insulators, Local 79, Local 78, CASA, Northwest Bronx, Faith in New York, painters. Also want to thank Councilmember Gibson and Cabrera for coming out tonight too as well. For everyone that's in the crowd right now, and if you would you mind giving your seat up for a little for some more respect, please, more class, more chivalry, please, though, for some people that's standing outside. Appreciate that. Younger guys in the back, particularly, yeah, we prioritizing our seniors for my labor people. 79, if you're young and able, please get up. Let the people sit down. Please, thank you, appreciate it.
Continuamos con la agenda. Continuamos con la agenda, mi gente. Otro tipo de acoso que nosotros también queremos evitar es el acoso de nuestros trabajadores del área. Ok, vamos a cantar, mi gente. Justice, ve a cantar en inglés. Ok. Se siente, el Bronx está presente, mi gente, repitan, please. Mi gente, se siente, el Bronx está presente. 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 Se siente, el Bronx está presente.
Who's Bronx? 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 Make some noise. This town hall is about every last one of us. This town hall is about all of us. This is our Bronx.
Otro acoso que Otra cosa que también nosotros queremos evitar es el acoso contra nuestros compañeros que son mecánicos de aquí de nuestra avenida Girón. Si somos una comunidad, ellos forman parte de nuestra comunidad y estamos totalmente en contra de que nuestros compañeros sean desalojados del área. Ese es otro de nuestros principios, no solamente antiacoso para nosotros los inquilinos, sino también para nuestros compañeros, mecánicos de auto y otros negocios que están en el área.
So is everyone clear? Are we clear? We saying no to rezoning unless what? Affordable housing, no displacement, good jobs, local hire. Are we clear?
Yes.
We're gonna say no to what? No, we're gonna say no to the rezoning unless we have affordable housing, no displacement, good jobs and local hire, and real community participation. Okay, so now we want to look at solutions. It's important to make solutions, not only just yell and rant. As the coalition, we spent almost a year in intensive community participation process to develop a set of solutions to these issues and then to prioritize these solutions. We want to take some time to ask Councilmember Gibson and Councilmember Cabrera key questions about these solutions. And then we'll open it up to the general questions. Councilmember Gibson and Councilmember Cabrera, please limit your answer to 2 minutes in the time of interest, please. In the interest of time.
Vamos a comenzar con los miembros de la coalición que hemos estado trabajando por mucho tiempo. Y la primera persona que voy a llamar de nuevo va a ser a Wayne. Él va a hablar de asequibilidad profunda.
Okay, so right now we're going to get straight into our participation with our political members that came here. So right now, at our last forum last year, and this is to Member Gibson. At our last forum last year, you acknowledged that mandatory inclusionary housing does not meet the affordability levels of the community and needs that we need other tools to reach families making less than $25,000 a year, about half of our community. But only 10% of the apartments under the city's existing term sheet, ELA, reach families making this amount. The coalition's proposal is, the coalition has proposed a deep affordability term sheet where the quarter of all subsidized apartments would be for families making less than $27,000 a year. A half of... All right, I'll reread that for you. The coalition has proposed a deep affordability term sheet where the quarter of all subsidized apartments would be for families making less than $27,000 a year. A half of all subsidized apartments would be for families making less than $36,000 a year. The question is, do you support the coalition's demand for deep affordability term sheets? And if yes, how will you support our advocacy to make sure that HPD offers this term sheet and that developers in our communities use it?
Sorry, I got 2 minutes. So good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Thank you so much to Casa Bronx and to everyone for coming out. It's hard to answer any question in 2 minutes, but I really want to thank all of you. Last year when we had this town hall, I was here with you, and every step of the way since we have had conversations around Jerome, I have been with you. And so I want to collectively thank you on behalf of my colleague and I for all of the work that you have done. Before I answer the question, I have to thank you. Because of your work, we were able to achieve the historic right to counsel. That is so important. I have to acknowledge that because that's important. And you guys worked for over 2 years to get Intro 214 to 42 sponsors. And now we not only have the speaker, but the mayor is supporting it, not just verbally, but with money. And so we are going to finally achieve universal right to counsel for all of our families living below the poverty line, which is all of us, to get a legal attorney when they go to court. So gracias, thank you. So the answer to the question is yes, I support the term sheet concept that has been put forth by CASA, and what I can do and will do as your council member working with my colleague in all of the conversations that we have with the administration, which includes DCP, HPD, the mayor's office, and all the other stakeholders, we have to make sure that in the final plan, the term sheet agreements are a part of that. Now, we do have a new commissioner at HPD, so it's no longer Vicky Bean. We have Maria Springer Torres. She's a new commissioner that's coming to us from EDC. So I have not yet met with her and her team, but I do know that they are very well aware of the term sheet proposal, and it's something that remains on the table. So I support it, and I want to make sure that it is a part of the conversation, but we are not at the point yet where we can say with final detail that it is going to be a part of the final plan. That's the honest truth, but I support you, but we are not at that point yet. We are not at that point yet, but it is something that I will support and stand with CASA on the new term sheet.
Thank you, Councilmember Ms. Vanessa Gibson. And same question for Councilmember Cabrera. Do you support the coalition's demand for deep affordability's term sheet? If yes, how will you support our advocacy to make sure that HPD offers this term sheet and that developers in our community actually use it?
Thank you so much. And again, I want to echo my colleague and the coalition, the entire coalition, and your support in making sure that our people from our neighborhood get what they deserve. The fact is that we have a situation here that I think is unprecedented in the city of New York. I represent the third poorest district, councilmatic district in the city. I think my colleague represents the fifth poorest. Richie Torres, which is right next to ours, is number 1, District 15. Never in the history that I could recall, never in the history of New York City have we seen a rezoning taking place in such an area. Meaning this is going to require a different level of support from the city in order for us to achieve the goals that you have presented for, which I am in full support and concept, just like my colleagues as well. And so what we need to do is put our heads together and how the numbers, at the end of the day, what are we asking specifically from the city in terms of what it's going to take in terms of extra subsidized funding from the city in order to make this a reality. And I see the broom already being sticking out. I got one more minute. And so I'm asking the coalition to continue doing the work that you're doing, to providing us the wisdom that we need, the numbers that we need, in order that when we stand before HPD, when we stand before EDC, and we can say that the numbers that we have in our term sheets make sense, and this is exactly how it will work, because we need it, our people need it, and this is what we're going to stand by. Thank you so much.
Gracias. La próxima persona que voy a llamar es miembro de casa, también forma parte de la coalición, y ella va a hacer preguntas acerca de nuestra diversidad socioeconómica. Atia.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Althea Matthews. I'm part of the CASA team, one of the leaders, and part of the steering committee for the Bronx rezoning as well. I'm going to talk about the social economics, diversity. At our forum last year, Ms. Gibson, and good evening, thank you for coming, both of you, Cabrera and Ms. Gibson. At our forum last year, you said that our neighborhood needs diversity and that we are not going to accept a neighborhood of 100% of housing for poor people. But we already have a diversity of income here. Close to 25% of our households in our area make above $50,000, and 15% make above $150,000. Now, not to mention that given that we are home to some of the lowest rents in the city, people with higher incomes can already move here and find affordable housing if they want to. So my question to you, Ms. Gibson, do you agree that it's most important to build housing for local residents who are struggling the most with housing costs today? Or do you think it's necessary to build housing for wealthier people? Why or why not? Thank you.
I believe it's important to focus on the greatest and most vulnerable residents that live in our community. The families that are living at and below the federal poverty line, the extremely low income families that are living below 30% of the AMI are the families that this plan needs to reach the greatest. While I recognize that the majority of our community is living on a fixed income, many residents that are working are simply not making enough. And that's a challenge. So remember, with all the new housing that we create, we have to do an even better job to create the higher wage jobs so that people are not living off of minimum wage salaries for the rest of their lives. So what I believe is meeting families where they are at this point is our goal, but I also believe in mobility. So families that are living at 20 and 25% AMI or 30% AMI right now, I also want there to be an opportunity for them to move into the 30% AMI category as we create those jobs. So remember, this is not just about this current generation, but this is also about our children as well. As we promote opportunities for them to go through high school and get to college, our college kids are coming home and they can't find any housing for themselves, nor can they find the jobs as well. So So this is a plan to me that has to address those that are on the lowest income spectrum, but it also needs to recognize that we have to have some level of gradual opportunities to grow within our communities as well. So yes, I agree with you.
Thank you so much. Councilman, Member Cabrera, you have expressed similar ideas about wanting a more modern and diverse neighborhood. I'm gonna ask you the same question. Do you agree that it's most important to build housing for local residents who are struggling the most with housing costs today? Or do you think it's necessary to build housing for the wealthier people? Why or why not? Thank you.
Thank you so much. 50%, I want you to listen to this. 50% of the people that come to my office, they come because they have housing issues. I can tell you that there is not a day in my office where my workers are not dealing with this issue. They keep coming in. As a matter of fact, I've been council member for 7 years. And I can tell you that it's not getting better. We see the need that is increasing. We have 60,000 people today that are homeless. We saw that the Bloomberg administration totally dismantled the very little that we had before, and now we're trying to play catch up. And this is why I was the sponsor. I introduced and sponsored and got past the Tenant Bill of Rights in the New York City Council, because this is a particular important issue to me and my constituent, and I know for my colleague as well. But I want to let you know that I feel the pulse, I hear the heartbeat of the community, and we have to deal with low-income people that are struggling right now, seniors. We haven't talked much about seniors, but we need to make space for our senior. We need more senior. Do I have any seniors in the house that can concur with what I'm saying to you tonight? We need more senior housing. And so we're gonna, this is why I'm so excited. You know, I'll be honest with you, tonight I was worried because of the weather. Susanna, I was worried. I have to tell you, I was worried. I was like, man, it's cold out there, it's blowing hard, it's like 50 miles per hour wind. You show me tonight that you really care about this. And we have not only a full house, but we have a house in the overflow. And we're gonna make sure together, alongside with you, we're gonna make so much noise that we will not be ignored. Thank you so much.
For those of you that may not be aware, Casa Bronx, you guys were with us when we were with the mayor a few weeks ago, and we announced the agreement on right to counsel. You also remember that in the mayor's citywide housing plan, he has committed to set aside an additional 10,000 units of housing. 5,000 for veterans, because we don't do enough for our vets to make sure that they have long-term housing. And the other 5,000 is dedicated for seniors. Seniors, low, less than 40% AMI. So that is one commitment, but we also need to make sure that we can move that and take it a step further. That is a commitment the mayor has made, and I wanted to make sure everyone was aware of that, because that is very, very important.
Who's Bronx? Who's Bronx? This is our Bronx. We concerned with what's going to take place with our Bronx. I would like to bring up Sochi from Northwest Bronx. Make some noise for Sochi. Make some noise. Northwest Bronx.
Hello. When developers start to build a lot of new housing in our community, and the area begins to be more attractive to wealthy people, landlords often put pressure on existing rent stabilization tenants to try and get them out, to get new high payment tenants in. We thank you for giving us your support in the right to counsel, and we're looking forward to make it into a law. However, we need more tools to fight against the profit motive that drives landlords to push rent-to-stabilized tenants out. That's why we propose that the city passes the certificate of no harassment program, which will prevent landlords who have harassed tenants from getting certain construction and renovation permits, unless they agree to make new permanently affordable housing. That way the bill will either prevent landlords from harassing tenants in the first place, or will create new permanent affordable housing if harassment has occurred. This is a question to Gibson. Will you support our demand for the citywide certificate of no harassment program?
Yes. Hell yes. Councilmember Brad Lander introduced the bill to create a certificate of no harassment. The city has agreed verbally that they support it. I've added my name as a sponsor on the bill, and we will be working with the chair of the committee to make sure that we can have a hearing, get everyone down to City Hall, just like we did for Intro 214, and make sure we get the administration support, and we can have a bill signing and codify it in local law. So yes, I agree, I support, and I am a sponsor of the bill.
We also wanted to express our appreciation that you are a sponsor of our right to counsel, and we're looking forward for you to vote to support it when it comes before the when it becomes a law. This is my question to Cabrera. Will you support our demand for citywide certification of no harassment program?
Yes, and as a matter of fact, I got some extra good news. And that is, as a result of the meetings that I had with the community board and also with CASA, I'm happy to announce that I submitted legislation. It's in the drafting stage right now, directing HPD to create a zero-tolerance policy for harassment and poor building conditions, with provisions for legal action by the city against landlords who violate the policy, requiring HPD to create a comprehensive list of eviction and distressed building, tracking housing related 311 calls. This is stuff that you've been asking for. Building ownership, management, and most recent sales. Yeah, I know Spanish too, I should have. Perdónenme, por favor. Okay. To be available to the public for review, requiring HPD to create a comprehensive strategy to target buildings for preservation programs, and directing HPD to provide incentive to property owners to repair and retrofit buildings in accordance with building codes. The good news is we're coming with more legislation that are gonna really help our people. And I forgot to mention something that my staff reminded me. I just passed a piece of legislation the week before last, in which is going to help our senior with screen. Now it's going to be required that all of the major agencies in the city of New York will disseminate and give out information regarding screen in 7 different languages. Now we'll have more senior to be able to get it into the screen program. Thank you so much.
So we got definitive yes on both of those questions. Let's make some noise for that. Okay, I got the pleasure to introduce Lois.
Antes de hacer mi pregunta, recuerden, mientras nosotros estamos haciendo las preguntas, hacer ustedes las de ustedes. Esta es una excelente oportunidad. Recuerden que nuestros concejales son una pieza clave en que rezoning sea sí o no. Aprovechen esta oportunidad y escriban sus preguntas en las tarjetas que le dimos, que alguien las va a recoger. Mi pregunta continúa con el antidesplazamiento, y también hemos propuesto que la ciudad cree un comité especial antidesplazamiento con reuniones regulares entre organizaciones de la comunidad y HPD para discutir las estrategias proactivas para la preservación. Este comité tendrá los recursos y herramientas de HPD para pelear en contra de los abusos que cometen los caseros, como negligencias y desplazamiento. Concejal Vanessa Gibson, ¿usted apoya esta idea? Si su respuesta es sí, ¿qué hará para ayudarnos a lograrlo?
So the question was the idea that Casa Bronx put forward about creating an anti-displacement task force with regular meetings with local community organizations and HPD to discuss proactive strategies for preservation. The task force would have the resources to use all of HPD's tools to fight landlord abuses, building neglect, and displacement. The question is, do I support the idea? Absolutely. And yes, that I do. What will I do to help achieve it? This is an idea that has been put forth months ago by the coalition that the city is very much aware of. And in order for us to get it through the process, I really think it would be great to do it the legislative route, because other neighborhoods that are slated for zoning, ultimately the city should have an oversight capacity to work with all neighborhoods that are going through zonings. But as it relates specifically to preservation and anti-harassment and displacement, I love the idea of having a working group to work directly with HPD to ensure that there's a system of checks and balances. So even when we pass and codify right to counsel, we need to make sure that tenants are getting the services they need. When we do the certificate of no harassment, we need to make sure that the law is being complied with. So I love the idea, and I, as your council member, will work with the administration, with HPD, to make sure that that can be a part of the final agreement. But I do think, as a matter of being a legislator, everything we do, we want to make sure that good measures are codified in local law. Because after this neighborhood is done and other neighborhoods, we want to make sure that these good practices are codified in law, and they will not change just because an administration changes. So I agree, and I think that we should take it to the next step and make sure that we can make it a part of local law.
Cabrera, la misma pregunta para usted.
I'm also in total agreement. I've been to 2 administrations, and you could have a mayor says, I'm all for this, and then the next mayor totally changed their mind. And this is why we need to codify into law. And for those who may underestimate the power of a task force, may I remind you that just a few years ago, myself and Councilmember Jerome Williams, we came out with a task force to deal with the gun violence problem that we have. And as a result of that, we were able now to get $21 million and 21 programs throughout the city, including in our neighborhoods. And in my neighborhoods in 183rd area, which this year will be the first year that anybody who's alive could remember we have not experienced a shooting in that catchment area of the district. Now, one shooting was the first summer that we didn't have a shooting. So all it started with a task force, and this is why this is genius, this is ingenious, and I totally support it, and I believe many, many good things are going to come out of that, and you will be in the table where decisions are being made. Thank you so much.
Perdón, mi gente. Continuando con las preguntas por parte de la coalición, el próximo tema va a ser el sector automotriz, y la pregunta la va a hacer nuestra compañera de Cristo Rey, Lourdes López.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. My name is Lourdes Lopez. I am a leader of Christ the King Social Justice Committee.
Real close to your mouth.
Okay.
Yeah, like that.
Faith in New York, and member of the steering committee of the Bronx Coalition.
Woo!
Okay. Councilwoman Gibson, Last year, you committed to helping the auto businesses in our community stay here after the rezoning. But we know that if the land the businesses are on is rezoned to allow apartment buildings, there will be a lot of pressure to displace those businesses and workers, since most are renters. No, I'll hold it. I'm sorry. There will be a lot of pressure to displace those businesses and workers, since most are renters whose landlords could sell their buildings to build something else that's more profitable. The city has proposed creating preservation areas where the zoning would not be changed, enabling auto businesses to stay. But as of now, they have proposed preserving less than a third of the businesses on Jerome Avenue. We like to see the city preserve more land to protect these businesses, find, implement, and fund relocation for businesses that need to move, and work on legislative and administrative policies that will reduce harassment and displacement on this important sector. My question to you is, how specifically will you support the preservation and protection of the auto industry? Will you support increasing preservation areas and possibly build more housing on fewer sites to offset the displacement pressures?
You put it right by the speaker, that's the problem.
Since we have had these conversations around Jerome, I will say that I have been the biggest champion and supporter of the auto industry along Jerome Avenue. Yes. And I say that because every step of the way, Pedro Estevez and the United Auto Workers Association has been helping me further understand what the needs of our auto workers are. Understanding that many of our businesses are leasing short-term, many of them don't understand what's happening, and many of them are really fearful of being pushed out. So to the extent that I am working with Pedro and many, many others, I am going to fight for every business as best as I can. Because the reality is, I don't want to support any plan that pushes the auto industry to another part of our city. Where will they go? I'm not a council member that wants to give businesses to another district. That's the reality. And the auto industry for me is a viable entity that we must maintain and further invest in. I know when you look at neighborhoods that are changing, many in this city don't see the importance of what the auto industry does, but I do. I see the workers every single day. My office is on Jerome Avenue, so I see the workers every single day. So number one, the first thing I have done, just yesterday I was with Pedro and CASA and WEDCO and ANHD, and we announced the introduction of the CARS Act, which is Commercial and Auto Related Stability Act. And it is a piece of legislation that is going to bring greater protections for our businesses that sign a lease. And unknowingly, when they sign these leases, there may be outstanding fines and liens and penalties on their business that the property owner knows, but the leasee does not know. So we're going to make sure that there are greater strengths that protect businesses before they enter into a lease agreement. The other question, and sorry I'm running out of time, is if there are businesses in this corridor that do want to relocate, not because they feel pushed out, but because it is their choice. I'm not putting pressure on anyone to leave, but everyone has a right to work here, do business here if they choose. If there are businesses that want to leave, then I will support a relocation plan. But I want to support a tangible relocation plan, not the plan that took the businesses in Willets Point and dump them in Hunts Point. Not anything like that. I want a real plan that's going to give real resources, grants and not loans, and really allow businesses to not only move, but be able to sustain themselves, right? So there's a lot with the auto industry that I'm constantly learning every day, but I am of the mindset that if you want to stay, then you have a right to stay. And the other part of it is we have to identify legal mechanisms that we can force our property owners to enter into longer term lease agreements with our businesses. Right now, many of them are leasing from month to month. They have leases that are less than 2 and 3 years, and so they know they're living on borrowed time. If we don't codify something in local law, then essentially we're pushing them out. So legislation is always a good tool for us, and it's a measure that we can succeed in that cannot be overturned. So I am with you, and whatever else we come up with, whatever ideas, I am always willing to listen on how we can strengthen the Jerome Avenue corridor as it relates to our auto workers.
Okay, Councilman Cabrera, these are 2 questions for you. The first question is, can you please state your position about protecting and preserving the auto industry? Question number 2, how specifically will you support the preservation and protection of the auto industry? Will you support increasing preservation areas and possibly building more housing on fewer sites to offset the displacement pressures?
Thank you so much. I want to take a moment to thank Pedro because he has truly, he deserves a round of applause. He's truly been a leader and literally educated us as to the need. He has done the most comprehensive survey, and my colleague didn't mention this, but she gave funding for that survey to take place. So I want to give credit to my colleague twice. And this year, I sat down with Pedro the other day, just a few weeks ago, and he's applying for funding from my office, so we're going to give him more reinforcements with that. So you have that commitment, Pedro, that we're going to be able to unite together to make sure that we could help the auto industry. Look, here is one of the things that I think could possibly work that already brought out to EDC, small business, into the city, which really came is the brainchild of Pedro, which is, why not have a place where the auto industry could have a co-op system so they could have ownership. This is one of the biggest problems that we have in our community, is that somebody else owns the property. Imagine a place where our auto industry could be in a co-op system where they have ownership and no one can kick you out because it is yours. And this is thinking totally outside of the box, but we need to do this in order to make sure that we take care of the auto industry in our community. And so you have my 110% support. Thank you.
Thank you. Wow.
Ahora voy a llamar a la señora Liz Thompson. Ella va a estar hablando acerca de buenos trabajos y contratación local y representa a Northwest Bronx.
Hello, everybody. My name is Elizabeth Thompson. I could do without this. Let me try. My name is Elizabeth Thompson. You hear me back there? No. And I know I got a big mouth. My name is Elizabeth Thompson. I am a member of Northwest Bronx and Kingsbridge Heights Neighborhood Association. I'm cutting a lot of this short, okay? I'm gonna try to get out the points just for y'all. My question is for both Councilman Gibson and Councilman Cabrera. Last year, when we asked about the local hiring, you said that HPD will require the developments and construction worker on city project that receive more than $2 million to share the jobs, opening the Hire of NYC website. Our coalition proposal, we don't think this is going far enough because there are no guarantee
that our local residents will get the jobs. We think the city should require project receiving any city subsidies to hire local and prevailing wages. You have to excuse me tonight. Preferring people who hire local when the city evaluate developing response to RFP for the city projects. Question. I don't know which one to question first. But I'm gonna take the lady first. Councilman, oh wow. Councilman Gibson. Councilwoman Gibson. Will you support us attaching local hiring, providing to the city subsidies? Will you support attaching state approval apprenticeship requirement for the city subsidies? You did good. No, I had deaf in our office, so I'm a little. Al Chapman passed. So Al Chapman passed. So I'm a little upset and nervous. Okay. So, Al, can you help us out with this? Oh, I can at least do that.
So the two questions are, will you support attaching local hire provisions to city subsidies? And will you support attaching state-approved apprenticeship requirements to city subsidies? And my answer for both is yes and yes. I think it's important that if we are building new housing in our community, then we should be a part of building that housing. I think it's really disingenuous when you are walking through your community and you see all of this beautiful housing. Number one, you can't get in, and then number two, you don't get any of the jobs. I think it's an insult to the residents that live in any community, not just this one. So attaching it through the RFP process, if that's what it is, or through any project that has a government subsidy attached, is an absolute crucial component. What it does for us as a city is it acknowledges that not only can we be a part of the new neighborhood in terms of the new housing, but it acknowledges that we are skilled and experienced, and the local jobs are needed in our own communities. We struggle in this borough with high unemployment, and although the numbers have gone down, we used to be in double digits, and now we're less than 8%. So we're making great strides, but we can go even further. And all of you know from Local 78 and Local 79 and La Una and BCW, the incredible amount of stability it is when you are in the construction industry in terms of taking care of you and your families. The second part of the question is very important for us because we had a huge hearing at City Hall a few weeks ago. There is a package of legislation, and the number one bill that all of us are supporting is Intro 1447. This is the bill that will mandate a state-approved apprenticeship program for any worker on any of our construction jobs in this city. And that is important because there is a huge distinction between union workers and non-union workers as it relates to their level of experience. We want everyone to have the same level of training from the beginning. So apprenticeship programs is an incredible footstep, foundation in terms of making sure that our construction workers have the skill set and the experience needed to provide the service, but number one, to be safe. There have been too many fatalities in this city, and all of the fatalities have been men of color. Immigrant men that are doing their job, all they want to do is return home the way they left. And it's our responsibility to make sure that they return home safe to their families. So yes, I support attaching the requirements for local hiring to any project that has a government subsidy. And yes, I absolutely support the state-approved apprenticeship programs as well.
Good idea.
I definitely agree with my colleague. If I recall right, in the coalition proposal was 30% local, 10% for youth, and 10% for women hire. So I definitely support it. Here's a proposal that I'm pushing forth, which often this is what ends up happening, redevelopment and rezoning. So we talk about rezoning, we talk about apprenticeship, but by the time somebody goes through apprenticeship, the building construction is over. Exactly. And then our people end up missing out. So I had a discussion just this week. I have mentioned this before. I'm going to continue to push forth, and that is to start the apprenticeship now. To have the city to start putting funding now. We have Bronx Community College right here that could provide, we used to have Project Hire there. Let's revive that so we could have the next generation of young people to be able to get these jobs, and alongside with those who live in our neighborhood right now, because I'm tired of seeing people from other neighborhoods that don't live around here getting the job, and now it's your turn. Thank you so much.
Help us with Intro 1447, please. We need your support. The administration does not support this legislation. They acknowledged that at our hearing. So we need you to talk to my colleagues, the speaker, the mayor, to build more support for Intro 1447.
Okay, thank you very much. And coming to you all for more stuff. Yes. Okay. Next.
La próxima persona que va a venir con nosotros va a estar hablando de lo que son los entrenamientos para nosotros, la comunidad, y es mi compañero Fitzroy de casa.
Thank you. Thank both of you for coming here and joining us tonight. Councilwoman Gibson, I'm going to bypass you. The question I had to ask you, you answered. It was regarding Intro 1447. So since we had your answer and your support, I'm going to be asking Councilmember Cabrera. Will you support the coalition's demand for more funding for programs to provide job training and education to local residents, and how will you do this? The second part is, will you support Intro 1447, the bill on worker safety and training, especially since we have so many people here, and if anything happens to them, they live with us, and their families are going to be grieving with us, and we want to make sure that they can go back home to their homes, their families, after the job ends that day. Do you support it, and how will you do that?
Thank you so much. Thank you for the question, and thank you for the opportunity to be able to give my thoughts regarding it. Look, construction is a very dangerous job. And it requires skills, and it requires training, safety training. When you think about apprenticeship, you think about there's two arms to apprenticeship. And that is, again, training and safety, and also when it comes down to the skills that are required to be able to do the job. Often what ends up happening with some of the projects that we have here in the city, including right here in the Bronx, is that we have construction where people are not properly trained, and because they're not getting the training that they need, they have put themselves in a situation, in a very dangerous situation. My wife used to work in a nursing home, and I remember this some years ago. She called me hysterically because they are hired non-union, and this man fell off the scaffold, the entire scalp come up. I know that sounds very dramatic, but I have to tell it like it is. She was traumatized. The young man was traumatized. It was a horrific experience. This happened before I became a council member. And that stuck in my mind as to the dangers that many of you who are here right now, you know what I'm talking about. You're there, you're in the projects. Some of you have seen people go through some horrific things. And normally what ends up happening is that the GC, after they go through this injury, they don't care, they wash their hands, especially when it comes to the immigrant population, and not even more with the problems that we're gonna have on the federal level and the threats that they're gonna experience, that if you say something, you're out of a job, or we're gonna call you in. And so we need all of the protections, and so you can count on me to be with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilmember Cabrera. I just wanted to do a little, Councilmember. Who's Bronx? 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 All right, Councilmember Cabrera, I just wanted to get some clarity. Maybe you and I could have misunderstood you, or you misunderstood the question. In terms of the apprenticeship program, you're not actually waiting to work while you're training. You're actually training and working in the same process. They both go hand in hand. So I'm a graduate of an apprenticeship program as well, and during the course of my 4-year training, I worked during my training. So, no, I just wanted, I didn't know, no pun intended or nothing. Okay, question, yeah, he just spoke about 1447, intro 1447. He just said he supported. Am I correct? We all heard him, he supports it. He supports it. All right, it's a general question for both of you guys. Statement first and then a question. As you know, we have met with city agencies many times over the last 2 years, and so far they have failed to meet most of our core demands. As you know, our position is that we don't want a rezoning that isn't for us if the rezoning moves forward without all of our key demands being met. We will fight the rezoning and ask that you vote no. Will you push the city to delay ULURP if our demands aren't met? The next question is, will you stand with us and say no to the city if we don't get these demands? Any one of you guys can actually take the time to answer this question. No order, no anyone, Councilmember Vanessa Gibson or Councilmember Cabrera, whoever want to go first, there's no order.
Ladies first.
Well, I'm not going to do that.
If there's one thing I've ever learned about being an elected official is that there are always some uncomfortable and sensitive questions that you're always going to be asked. But if there's one thing I always know, my faith always leads me, and I will always be honest. We were able to delay the scoping season in September because of our collective work. Because of you coming to us last year and telling us that we needed more time because the city was going to give us a document in the middle of the summer when we were not around and kids were out of school, we were able to delay that through September. And we had a hearing at Bronx Community College until 11 o'clock at night. I was there to the end. And so I think moving through the process and even up to now, I have made my positions very clear to this community. I have always had an open door. I've always listened to every single one of you, and I've never turned you away. This is a plan that is going to have an incredible change and transformation in our borough and in our community. And as your elected representative and the voice that you have allowed me to have at City Hall, I have always had your best interests at heart. What I do not like to do in most of my work is bet on a stack of cards and I don't know what that deck looks like. And where we are in the plan, we have received very little detail from the administration on how we're going to achieve 4,000 new units of housing, identifying the actual sites, because the challenge we face in this zoning is we have very little city-owned land. So it is going to require us to be creative and do something different that was done in East New York, that's being done in El Barrio, and every other zoning in this city. And so for me, your positions and your priorities that you have outlined and fought so hard for these past 2 years have become my positions, because you are my constituents and you are the faces of this community. So I've always stood with you, and I will continue to stand with you. So if it means when we get to ULURP and we are not at the point where we, and I say we, not just Fernando and I, but where we are not able to support this particular plan in its current form, then absolutely I will support delaying ULURP. I want to delay this project as much as I can because I want to get it right. I don't want to make any mistakes. I don't want to leave anyone out. Not our seniors, our veterans, our children, our families. This project is not just about housing. Remember, we're talking about new school seats, better transit in our district. Everyone is complaining about the BX 11 and 13 in Highbridge, about the lighting, about public safety, the quality of life, the access to health and wellness and better supermarkets. So this is a plan that we have to look at from a larger picture. Everything flows from housing, but I care and we care about everything else. So yes, I will stand with you if it means that we have to delay ULURP and push it back, because we need to get this right. The city, none of us want this project to fail. I don't want to get to a point where I have to say to my colleagues, I want you to vote no on Jerome. I don't want to do that. And I'm fighting like hell every day that I have a conversation with this administration to make sure that I don't have to have that position. Just so you understand where I am. This is not easy, and I want all of you to be clear and understand where I come from. I represent you and thousands of residents out in our community that are not necessarily understanding what's happening. All they know is what they read in the paper, and it's not always accurate. Those alternative facts we hear about. So for me, this is a huge responsibility, and I want to take it as precautious as I can. So I will stand with you to the end to make sure that this is a plan that we can support, and I don't want to have to tell my colleagues no. So I am saying to you now that I will stand with you. I will support every position that you have and make sure that it is a position that can be written into the final plan of Jerome. Does that make sense? Okay.
No. Can I answer that one? I'm gonna. Can I answer that? So, yes, talking about affordable and low-income housing. So, look, in my district, I have the most scattered sites in the entire city. I'm happy that the mayor decided, he made a decision, and he had the press conference, that within 5 years, we will no longer see scattered sites, shelters. And they're gonna be converted into affordable and low-income apartment. And that's gonna start with districts like ours, because we carry a lot of the load. Same thing with Hunts Point, they carry a lot of load. And so, I stand with my colleague. She presented a tremendous case. I've been through a ULURP process before. And I can tell you through experience that the biggest leverage that we could ever have happens at the end. Because there's something about urgency, there's something about creating a dynamic at the very end that they're gonna have to give in. They're gonna have to give us what we're asking for. And of course, we both want it, and I'm sure everybody here wants what we have put forth, and this is why we need to continue making some noise, making a reasonable case, presenting strategies that make sense, showing a financial plan that works and getting the city engaged to subsidize. This is going to require for the city to subsidize. We have never had a rezoning like this. I'm telling you, we have never had something like this in the entire city. This is not Manhattan, and this is not in a nice neighborhood in Brooklyn where the property values are very, very high. So it's going to require for the city to put out some significant amount of funding in order for this to take place. And so, but let's don't give our leverage that we have, which happens literally at the 11:59.59 hour. I'm telling you, I've been through this process before, and it works if we stand together. Thank you so much.
Yes.
So those were the general questions that came from the various members who were part of the Bronx Coalition. And now I want to entertain questions that came from you all, the public. I'm going to do my best to coordinate similar questions into one question. If you have a question, please write it down. We are not entertaining questions from the floor. Randy has index cards in his hand. Raise your hand, and an index card will be given to you. If you need help writing your question down, someone will help you. I did receive a couple of questions that have to do with just housing issues in general. I passed that on to CASA, and a staff person will eventually follow up with you, but those are not questions related to the rezoning this evening. So let me start with, and I apologize, I'm not leaving anyone out. It's because of time that I want to make sure I get to the questions concerning rezoning. So there were three similar questions that have to do with the term sheet. And this is both for Councilwoman Ms. Gibson and Councilman Cabrera. And you can all decide in which order. Will you vote no if the Bronx Coalition's term sheet comes up for a vote? And let's just say it doesn't come up for a vote, and the only one that's being proposed is the existing Ella term sheet. What will be your vote? Will you vote no against the Ella term sheet? And if the new term sheet that was developed by the tenants, labor, and developers, will you support the new term sheet that we discussed previously, where it's a quarter and a quarter, basically $36,000 and less? What's your stand on the term sheet?
Okay, I indicated earlier that yes, I support the term sheet proposal put forth by the coalition, but it doesn't work like that. The term sheet conversation would not come before the council. The way that this neighborhood plan will come forth is the total plan. It wouldn't be based on term sheet versus local hiring versus MWBE. It doesn't work that way. So it's hard to answer that question because that's not how the process works in the city council. When we voted on East New York, we voted on the East New York neighborhood rezoning plan and everything that was included in it. So the term sheet is a priority of the coalition and it's a part of the overall plan, but it's not just done in a silo in the city council that way. Does that make sense? Okay.
If at any time you feel like the other member wants to add anything, please feel free to do so. So another question from the audience is, what will you do to fight predatory real estate developers from pushing out tenants?
So this is definitely in our radar. We want to make sure that the people who are here not moved out, and that discussion has already begun. That discussion is one in which we're not, not waiting for us to get to the finish line to start talking about this and implementing some strategies. We want the city to start doing something now. Why? Because right now, we have people who are speculating on the land and they're looking at positioning themselves to be able to purchase. And then you have, as a result of that, the landlords in the surrounding areas, they're looking at, what my property value is going to be and how much more than I can get, and they're looking to the bottom line. So what we need to do is to make sure as elected officials we're committed, and as advocate, I know that you're committed, for us to be able to continue to sound the alarm every time, case by case, that we see a situation where we see landlords trying to push people out. Look, in my other life, I'm a pastor of a church. I deal with this stuff literally on a weekly basis. And we see the landlords, some of the landlords, trying to push people out, coming up with excuses. Right now, one of the biggest issues that I'm seeing is the rat situation. The other day I had a situation in Sedgwick Avenue where the landlord is remediating the issue of rats only with those new tenants, but not with people who've been there 20, 30 years. And so I had ABC News, NBC, News 12, Pix 11. It became the news of the day, and we're going to keep, and no landlord wants their building to be in the hall of shame on the news, so we're going to continue to do that.
Two things I'll add. Right to counsel, that can help from displacement, from tenants being harassed by their landlords, because it gives them the ability, if they go to court, to fight a case with their lawyer. We are working in the council and working with many of our elected officials, and there's legislation in the council that will give HPD further legal tools to prevent many of our landlords that have excessive A, B, and C class violations from number one, purchasing new buildings, and from number two, from even being a part of acquiring any other buildings, and also ensuring that they deal with many of these serious code violations. I think some of the issues that we have seen, and many of you have been a part of running some of the worst landlords out of this borough, and I won't call any names, but you know who they are, and we still have more to go. It is unacceptable that you have landlords in this city that own multiple buildings, hundreds of violations, they don't even pay taxes, and they're still allowed to own these buildings. And then another component, and we learned this in another building in our district, is you have owners that in order to maintain the ownership of their building, they'll find third parties that will come in and that will pay off their equity so that the original slumlord maintains ownership of that building. So we have legislation in the council where we're trying to ensure that these types of predatory practices do not continue in our city.
Okay. I'm laughing with Councilmember Vanessa Gibson as the poster child for predatory. Anyway, let's move on very quickly. I want to be as succinct with the answer as I am with the question. What special provisions will be set in place to support and protect individuals with disabilities? If you can keep it to the 2-minute answer, we can get some more questions.
Well, one of the big issues in my district is in regards to Burnside, in terms of getting into the subway. It's amazing that somebody who is in disability cannot get, that's one of the busiest business corridor, and under this new plan that is being suggested by city planning, we're talking about bigger high-rises in Burnside. So we're gonna have more activity taking place there, and so we need an elevator or escalator, and I've been giving a gazillion excuses since I became a council member, but we are in an ideal situation right now. And I understand, look, this is the state level, but I think we're in an ideal situation to put the pressure, put some healthy pressure to be able to have accessibility for all those who need it.
And in addition, we have worked with the state legislature and increased the eligibility for SCRE and DRE. So SCRE is senior citizens rent income exemption, and DRE is disability rent income exemption. Originally, the income was $29,000 in order for you to qualify. 2 years ago, we raised it through the state to $50,000 to accommodate more seniors, more residents with disabilities to freeze their rent when they renew their lease for 1 or 2 years. In addition, we are making sure if you have a disability, that is a protected class. So if anyone is discriminating against you because of your disability, and we know many disabilities you cannot visibly see, but that doesn't mean that you should be discriminated against. The Human Rights Commission at the city and the state level, they have ways that they are doing intake to make sure that you are not discriminated against, and that means housing, that means social services, that means anything being in New York if you have a disability. So SCRE and DRE, as well as making sure that we provide better services for mass transit and those with mobility issues, and fixing our sidewalks. Jesus Christ.
So, how will developers be held accountable for promises they have made during the request for a proposal process? How will developers be held accountable?
Having gone through a ULURP process, one of the biggest concerns that I have is that you have terms and conditions that are done with the city regarding whatever agreement you come with. Just recently, we passed in the recent council, in the city council, I still got jet lag. In the city council, we just recently passed a major piece of legislation, which now every agreement, every term and condition is going to be made public, and everyone will have access to it. So no longer is going to be that we make an agreement with the city, as a council member or the community board, they have the term and condition, and the community can never go back to hold the city accountable and to whoever else is engaged accountable. Now we're going to have total transparency, and now we can put the pressure on and to revisit to those who say they're going to do something to make sure that they do it.
Two things, very simple. In the RFP agreement, before the developer is selected, within the context of that, there needs to be penalties outlined if you fail to comply with the terms of the RFP. Secondly, we need to make sure that HPD, as the authority, ensures that the terms are being complied with. If that's not being done, then you have a city council that has oversight over the HPD. So there are checks and balances that are in place through the legislative process and through the oversight of the city council, but within the RFP conversation and the agreement, before the developer is selected, you have to have measures that will comply, that will allow the developer some sort of a penalty if they do not comply.
So let me quickly. Pretty soon, Justice and I are going to be on the floor playing with the sandbox. So I have 2 more questions, and we're going to wrap up this part of the segment so we can come to the closing. We know that rezoning action becomes law, but how will you ensure the rest of the neighborhood plan, new services, school seats, etc., parking space will be enforced? How will you get the plan and bite into it with your teeth to make sure this is happening?
Let me start with public safety. Thank you for giving all those items so I can just move quickly. One of the things that the police precinct has asked is the 46th precinct to move into Jerome Avenue. We're exploring that possibility. As you know, that the 46th precinct, they're not in the middle of the district, they're not in a strategic place, and they're having parking issues over there. major parking issue. I give them $250,000 for them to pave one of the parking lots, and that has alleviated some of the problems, but we still need a lot more parking. In terms of parking for the public, I have to tell you, 279, PS 279, we have major issues. The city, unfortunately, have made now in Jerome Avenue, instead of having, you could pay for 6 hours and leave your car there, and now you can only park there for an hour. Our teachers are having a difficulty because there's nowhere to park. Even if you want to pay, there's just nowhere to park. So we have a parking issue. I brought this issue up as to be one of those prime issues that I'm very concerned about. Anybody who drives here, it's getting more difficult to find parking around this area. At least in my district, it's getting more difficult. In terms of schools, in my district, we need at least 800 more seats. And we have some of the buildings that we could have more construction take place to increase space to have more children to be able to come and reduce class sizes. I have some of my schools, like PS 279, 34% of those students are living in a shelter. And they need more programs, reading programs. We need extra support. And I think right now is the ideal time to ask for the level of support that is going to be required in order for us to be able to absorb this 4,000, think about this, 4,000 units that are going to come into a district that's going to translate to at least 10,000 people.
We're going to have to start doing the Apollo with the cane.
Okay, I'll be quick. Last year, when we passed MIH and ZQA at the City Council, along with that, the mayor invested $50 million as a startup called the Neighborhood Development Fund. With every neighborhood rezoning plan in the city, there is associated money that will be attached to that neighborhood plan to address everything else next to housing. School seats, building a new school, making sure there's capacity, daycare centers and other local human service facilities, mass transit like the elevator escalator at Burnside. From Yankee Stadium to Fordham Road, Jerome Avenue, there's not one elevator nor escalator. Making sure there's increased bus service for the BX11, the BX13, the BX6. So these are all of the amenities that we have to address when there is an expectation of new residents. I would argue that we should be talking about new school seats even before we started talking about Jerome in the first place, because District 9 has always been overcrowded. So what I'm a little upset about is that we're having this conversation now with the expectation of new residents when the residents here have already been in need of new school seats, more daycare centers, more UPK sites. So these are all of the things that we will be working on. And as I said, the plan, housing, but it's also healthcare, looking at commercial diversity and more stores along Jerome and 167 and 170. But for me, school seats is going to be the biggest thing. I think sometimes as a government, we don't always talk to each other. So DOE and SCA are not talking to DOT and MTA and SBS and the mayor's office and every acronym you could think of. But bottom line is we all need to be talking to each other about how we can all be a part of this overall plan.
Thank you. So we're not going to entertain any more questions, and I've given all the questions that we can announce this evening or ask of the two city council members here tonight. That CASA staff is right outside and will make themselves available to talk to you specifically about the question that you were proposing. But I'm going to end with this one. Will worker cooperatives and tenant cooperatives be promoted for more than it is right now? Again, will worker cooperatives and tenant cooperatives be promoted for more than it is right now?
Absolutely. We supported worker cooperatives, and last year in the budget, second year in a row, we invested more money for worker cooperatives. I am very big on not just cooperatives, but I'm very big on workforce development. So in this neighborhood plan, we're also going to be asking for workforce development and having an actual center, because the criticism is always that our people are not skilled and we don't have the experience. We need to have the center right in our community to help with job training, resume building, so that we can enhance our technical skills and also our trade skills so we can be prepared for the jobs of the 21st century. This is all about mobility for me and making sure that our young men and women, and especially something that is near and dear to my heart, our formerly incarcerated men and women. I cannot tell you how hard I am working on their behalf because they need a chance. They weren't given a first chance, and now we got to give them a second chance because they weren't given a first chance. So worker cooperatives, I'm not sure exactly what tenant cooperatives looks like, but... Oh, okay, housing cooperatives, yes, absolutely. Yes, HDFCs. We don't do enough for HDFCs. We need to create a better pathway for home ownership and ownership opportunities. HDFCs have been struggling years and years, and then we do third-party transfers, and we revert back to rental. We need to make sure we have a pathway for owners, because the concept cannot be in our district that we are renters for the rest of our lives. Just like we should not be employees for the rest of our lives, but we can achieve to be homeowners and business owners at the same time.
That's right. 20 seconds real quick, and thank you everyone. Thank you for sticking it out. It's just amazing the amount of people that's still here. But in just 20 seconds, I love this this process because you really get to inspire your elected officials with legislation. And just yesterday, we submitted legislation for workers cooperative to be set aside. So you're going to be seeing more of this. And once we have the intro, I'll come back to you so you can support it, and then it could become a reality. Thank you so much.
All right, everyone, before you guys get up and leave, we just got a few things to say. First off, we heard a lot from the elected officials tonight, but we know that the power to create a just rezoning all lies with us. Listen, we understand that we are the people, that nothing can move without us. Know that. Know your rights, know your power, know your voice.
That's right.
We have a lot of work ahead. All of you have commitment cards in your packets. Make sure you fill them out before you leave. But I got a question. I want everyone to listen. Please, give me 1 second. I got a question. Are we ready to fight? Yes. Are we ready to fight? Yes. All right, listen, if you're ready to march with us, please stand up. Are you ready to march with us? Please stand up. Yes. Will you do outreach? Yes. Will we do outreach? Yes. Will we march? Yes. Who will fight? Who will we fight to stop rezoning unless our demands are met? Let's go. Make some noise. Thank you guys for coming out.
Sí se puede.
Sí se puede.
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
Sí se puede.
Yes, we can.
Sí se puede.
Yes, we can.
Sí se puede.
Yes, we can.
Gracias, mi gente, por venir. Buenas noches.